Thank you for tuning in to the third part of our Getting the Most from Your Lectures screencast. Now you're in the actual lecture. What are some things you can do to learn as much as possible from the time you're investing? The first question is, how do you take your notes during lecture? The possibility that you might not take notes at all is not even worth considering. There's a debate between using laptop versus using pen and paper. Each does have their benefits, though usually we suggest writing notes by hand. Why? A big reason to consider using a pen and paper to take notes is to help you focus. Many students find that technology can be very distracting in class, as it is so tempting to browse to other websites and applications. A study in 2013 assessed how distracted students were in the lecture if they took notes by hand versus by typing. After the lecture, students both completed a survey on how distracted they felt during the class and took a test on the material. Students who took notes by hand and sat away from students with laptops reported in the survey that they did not feel distracted and did the best on the test. Students who took notes on a laptop reported feeling distracted, and that was confirmed with lower scores on the test. Students who took notes by hand but sat near students using laptops did not acknowledge on the survey that they felt distracted. Nevertheless, they also scored lower on the test. This shows that laptops in the classroom can be a distraction that not only reduces the effectiveness of students using the laptop, but also reduces the effectiveness of students sitting near laptops. If you do choose to type in class, it's really important to minimize distractions by turning off your notifications and Wi-Fi. Some students like to borrow a laptop from the library to use during lecture because it won't have any games or bookmarks to distracting sites. If you find you get distracted by students using laptops nearby, try to sit near to the front of the classroom, where it will be hard to see other people's screens. Another advantage of using a pen and paper is that it helps you process what the professor says rather than just mindlessly transcribe it. A lot of students like typing their notes because they can type faster than they write. However, sometimes that speed means that the information goes into their ears, straight to their fingers while bypassing their brain. The speed of typing can sometimes be a detriment. For that reason, the study listed on this slide suggests that even without the distraction factor, which was controlled in the research design, it might be better to take notes by hand than with a laptop. Because they are physically unable to write down everything the professor says, handwriters process lecture material more deeply to make choices in their note-taking, and thus learn the material more effectively than laptop users. They have to ask themselves which material is important enough to write down, and if so, whether the same information can be rephrased into fewer words. If you are going to type, you need to slow yourself down, think about the material as it's coming in, and be selective in what you type. The ideal way to take notes while focusing in lecture is to bring in some notes you already have, like handouts you made from the slides, or your reading notes, like we discussed earlier, and follow these notes as the professor lectures, filling in any new material that comes up. That way you won't feel the need to write down everything, so you will be able to tune into the lecture better and not miss points while you are writing down other points. Reviewing your notes after the lecture will also help make up for points that you missed because you were writing slowly. So how do you know what to include in your notes? If you already come in with a set of notes sent by the professor or from your readings, listen particularly for clarification of ideas you didn't understand or for additional details to add to those notes. There are also a few things the professors often might use as a giveaway of the most important information for exams. If you're lucky, they'll directly tell you that something will be on the exam or drop pretty obvious hints. If not, think about changes in their tone or rate of voice and look at their body language, such as gestures or moving around the room. If they repeat information or write it on the board, that's a clear sign that they think it's important. If you hear things like this, highlight or underline them in your notes. You might also hear points that you think will make good exam questions. This is often when you notice relationships between concepts being discussed in one class and other concepts previously discussed. You'll get better at this throughout the term and through your years at university. It's a good idea to keep a running list of good exam questions. If you'll need to write a paper for a class, leave room in your notes to jot down important points for your paper as well. It's a good idea to organize your notes in a way that lets you review them more easily and to add new information. Cornell Notes is one system for doing this. To set up Cornell Notes, divide your paper so that you have a wide column on one side and a narrow column on the other, and a small box at the bottom of the page, as you see on the slide. During class, write your notes in the wider column. Then after class, write your keywords and questions in the narrower column, and a short summary of the lecture at the bottom. When you review later, the questions and keywords in the margin are useful tools to help you recall the information and test yourself from memory. If there's material you don't understand, ask questions. This is easier to do if you are sitting in the front and don't see the whole class in front of you. Remember that chances are, if you're confused about something, your classmates probably are as well. Now the lecture is over. I used to just close my notebook and forget about the lecture until the next test was coming up. I know now that doing that resulted in forgetting a lot and having to study much longer and harder for the test. Watch the final part of the screencast to find out what you can do to save study time later.